The Ukraine war has not been a simple conflict, to say the least. Meanwhile, the media has solely focused on individual stories of migrants, war crimes, or bombings. In all this noise, people don't have a very firm grasp of what has happened day to day in this conflict. If the casualties on both sides compared, Russian lost 448 tanks, 750 APCs destroyed, 20 aircraft, 32 helicopters were destroyed, 3 ships sunk, 15,000 troops killed with 20-30k injured, while Ukraine lost 100 tanks, 200 APCs and 18 aircraft, while 15 ships sunk, 4,000 troops were killed. The Russian invasion was initially kicked off with a round of artillery fire, cruise missile strikes, and bombings from fixed-wing craft. This came after Russia had amassed 200,000 men along the border. Keep in mind the Russian army is 300,000 strong, so this is a very large chunk of Russia's military. The goal was to cripple the Ukrainian military by targeting hardened positions, artillery, AA guns, and so on. Russia hoped that this would cause the Ukrainian military to break and be easy pickings for the Russian advance. This was unsuccessful. The Ukrainian military remained strong and combat effective. Russia simply had bad intel and straight up missed many of their desired targets. Most of the time, Russia was bombing empty fields. After the limited artillery strike, the main invasion came from all directions at the same time. The war front breaks down into 3 smaller fronts. One around Kornibil, one around Chernihiv, and one around Sumy, called Northern Front. The Eastern Front, which is specifically around the Donbass region. And the Southern Front, which is based around Crimea and Odessa. The main Russian advance was focused around Kiev. They advance on Kiev from the north and east via the forces from the Kiev and Chernihiv sector. At the same time, a massive advance from Sumy will cut off retreat and surround the city. From February 22th through March 1st, the Russian invasion is swift and cuts deep into Ukrainian territory. Ukraine employs a fighting retreat. They freely trade land for time and bodies, making Russia pay for every step. Russian troops try desperately to close in but fail and only face mounting losses. Russian forces push clear to Kiev, capturing numerous suburbs along the way. Intense urban warfare breaks out as Ukraine continues its fighting retreat. Similar success is found around the Chernihiv sector, with Russian forces pushing to the outskirts of Kiev. Over in the Sumy sector, Russian units advance rapidly but are stopped. Ukrainian counterattacks retake Sumy itself, and Russian units decide to go around the city and continue their push forward. Sumy is besieged and the Russian units continue their advance. During these initial few weeks, there are numerous battles happened. Here Russian units attempt to take Okturka, but their attack is repelled. Russia then falls back and tries to destroy defenses with artillery fire, but this is unsuccessful. Eventually, Ukrainian units counterattack to push the Russians out of the area. Russian units quickly advanced into the city of Sumy, but are quickly pushed out by a Ukrainian counterattack. Russia decides it cannot afford to get bogged down and pushes forward around Sumy, taking the surrounding towns and villages. The advance is eventually repelled relatively close to Kiev, and all Russian forces are eventually pushed completely out of the region. Russia badly wanted to take this airport to fly in more troops and supplies to the front. Initially, they took the airport after a few days of intense fighting. Ukraine kept up the pressure though, attacking again and destroying the airport with their own artillery and aircraft. Eventually, fighting shifted to other suburbs and the damaged airport was abandoned. That massive Russian tank column was aimed at this airport originally. Towards the end of March, Ukraine begins going on the offensive. First, they blunt a Russian attack in the Sumy sector, and then counterattack along the entire front. The suburbs around Kiev, like Bucha, are recaptured, and Russian forces in the Sumy sector are pushed back beyond Sumy. Sumy itself is saved as the siege is lifted. Russia attempts to turn back the counterattacks for days, But as their units steadily take losses and fall back, the entire front is abandoned. Russia is having more success in the east and decides to redeploy its forces to that area. This is a major victory for Ukraine. It drastically reduces the amount of territory they need to defend, and it's a symbolic win for the entire nation. On Eastern Front, Russia is able to push in aggressively similar to the Northern Front. The Russian advance is swift, but doesn't go very far. The advance overall is steady but extremely slow. The main Russian push on this front was along the southern Black Sea coast. The goal was to link up with units from the southern front and form one cohesive advance. A major juncture here was Mariupol. This port city was invaluable to both the Russian and Ukrainian war efforts. Russia initially attempted to take the city with a quick and heavy assault, but Russian forces were repelled. A siege set in which lasted for months. Eventually, Russia took Mariupol, though at a heavy loss of life. As of today, the slow advance continues as Russia advances village by village, meeting resistance the entire way. Russia is now focusing its efforts here. Forces from the northern and southern fronts are being redeployed to this area. Ukraine now faces 8-1 odds in this sector, but they are managing to hold firm and keep Russia from making any breakthroughs. While on southern fronts, Russian units continued their advance here thanks to supply efforts from the Black Sea Fleet. This has been the most active front in terms of casualties, as both sides refused to give in. Russian units advanced out of the Crimea quickly, capturing numerous cities and winning battles like the Battle of Melitopol. By March 2, Russia had cut deep into Ukrainian territory and taken the crucial city of Kherson in the Battle of Kherson. Around the same time, Enerhoda was captured in the Battle of Enerhoda, which secured Russian control of everything south of the Dnipro River. Russia is focusing efforts in around the Donbass region, where they have had the most success. Putin's original goal, as stated in his speech when the invasion started, was to denazify Ukraine, which meant overthrowing the Ukrainian government and installing a Russian puppet government. As Russia faced defeat around Kiev, Putin downgraded his war goals, stating he only ever wanted the Donbass region. Putin's initial invasion was planned around Ukraine crumbling to the ground. With Zelensky proving unpopular, Putin believed a Russian invasion would cause the government in Ukraine to crumble, as its military refused to fight. The opposite has happened. Ukraine is fighting brilliantly, being tactically perfect so far in the war.